Robert Plank Show, episode 45. How to create a $10,000 per month income stream in just 5 hours per week. Hey there, and welcome back to the Robert Plank Show. We're talking about internet marketing, making money online, and working from home. And you know what? Are you angry? Have you ever been angry? Well, if you have, that's good because that means you actually have an opinion about something. You have something to say, you have some kind of step-by-step process that someone else will pay you money for. And if someone is angry at you, that's even better. That's great because that means you've actually stood up for something in your life. That's called polarization. So whatever it is, in my case, if it's WordPress plugins and setting up websites, or in your case, if it's the stock market or real estate or something like that, I guarantee that there are people out there who are your allies, who are your heroes, who are your mentors, and other people who are your enemies, and that's okay. On the internet, we have this thing called freedom of speech, and we can do whatever the heck we want, and it's just up to you to be better. So today we're going to talk about that magical line, that $10,000 per month line, and this is kind of like a weird double-edged sword, a kind of a weird number, $10,000 per month, because I don't know about you, but when I first started, $10,000 in a month, I thought that was as high as it would ever go. I thought if I could only make 10K a month, then I would have it made. But then what happens is a couple years in, once you hit that point, it turns out $10,000 a month is actually low. But then there's the problem of people who want to take the shortcuts. They basically want to take a college course without having gone through third grade addition and multiplication, right? And so that's what we're going to be getting you out of and getting you to the point where there's this $10,000 per month magical number. And I know if that sounds low to you, that's fine, but you need to crawl before you run. And if you say, well, you know what, 10K a month isn't enough, it needs to be 50K a month. Well, how about you get to 10 first and then build incrementally from there? And the weird thing about this 10K a month magic number is that a lot of like our peers in internet marketing, they get above this 10K a month number, and then they end up falling into the trap of having to put a lot of money back into the business, having to hire a lot of employees, so then they can say that for ego purposes, they make millions of dollars per year, but then when it actually comes time to pull the money out, they're making less than 10K a month. So 10K a month for you, if you're below that, let's just get you to that point or as close to. And you know what? If you've only made $100 or $1,000 online, well, that's fantastic. That's great. I'm proud of you. You're way ahead of everyone else who isn't even trying. So let's talk for a second about mindset, just maybe like 2 or 3 minutes. There's this thing called 4 daily tasks, and I don't know what your situation is. A lot of people, they're in retirement, been laid off their job. You got to juggle work and family and all this other stuff, and start a new business. And it's not necessarily a matter of how long you've been toiling away at it. It's not a matter of how many hours or minutes per week you put into it. And that's the employee way of thinking, right? Employee way of thinking is, well, if I make $10 an hour and if I put in 40 hours this week, well, then great, I've made $400 this week. But the problem is when it comes to you personally, when you're the boss, when you're a one-man entrepreneurial show, it's not about how much time you put in. It's also not about luck. It's not like you're going to be toiling away and suddenly bought out, right? You're not a startup. You're not going to win the lottery, but you're also not going to win the battle by toiling away. It's about hitting the next milestone, hitting the next plateau, and going from there. So 4 daily tasks. You need to do 4 things that are actually complete that move you in the direction of making more money. Changing your Twitter background doesn't bring you in that direction, right? If you are thinking about making a membership site, or you're making a membership site and you've made 10% of it, well, what does that mean? You can't really show me. That's not something that is complete. But on the other hand, if you go and register a .com domain name, cool, that's a task you just completed. That's moving you in the direction of making money. If you set up your membership site, if that I can see that part is complete. If you have put a simple PayPal button on a web page, you can accept digital payments online. That is something that is complete. Now, if you go and drink some water, or if you go and take a nap, well, is that really a business task? Well, no, that's one of your personal tasks. And you can say, well, on some level, indirectly, that moves me towards making more money. But let's think about there's your own personal time, and then there's your business time. And it's way more powerful, way more helpful if your computer is this thing called a hot seat. You sit at the computer, you knock out what needs to get knocked out, and you're done. So 4 daily tasks. Just do 4 quick 40-minute or 20-minute things, or sometimes 5 or 10-minute things that move you in the direction of making more money. And the great thing about this is, if you have family stuff, wake up an hour earlier. If you have work stuff, then go home on your lunch break and knock the stuff out. So when it comes to mindset, one of the most helpful things that I ever came across was that it's either inside of you or outside of you, right? And so if something's not quite right, if something's not working for you, only one of two things needs to happen. Either you change the way you think about something, or you change what you do. And I honestly would say that probably 80% of your problems are just in the way that you're thinking about something. If you think that, well, things aren't fair, or I'm waiting my turn. I mean, life isn't fair. And I mean, if you've been struggling at this stuff for 10, 15 years, or put $80,000 into this course and that course, well, maybe it's time to stop feeling sorry for yourself and actually do some things. And I'm sorry if that's a little bit offensive, but either you need to change your way of thinking, or change the things that you do. So if you find yourself buying $5 product after $5 product and not finishing, maybe you need to actually finish one of these courses that you buy. The problem with your beliefs is that your beliefs are kind of set in stone first, and then you filter the information, the facts and figures you find, and whether you know it or not, you're looking to reinforce your beliefs. So if your personal belief is that, well, making money online doesn't work, then anything that you read, you're going to ignore anything that's contrary to that, and you're going to believe more of what you already think, if that makes sense. And what's really scary about this is it turns into what's called an echo chamber, which is where maybe you've heard about, like, your income is the average of your 5 closest friends. So if you find that, and what you're going to find out is that people who think and talk like you're going to say, well, these people are smarter than everyone else, right? Because you can relate to them better. Well, the problem is, if you're a grumpy curmudgeon and you make friends with 5 other grumpy curmudgeons, and you all kind of reinforce each other's beliefs, you're all going to drag each other down. And sometimes it's time to cut loose some of those friends that aren't working and make new friends that are where you want to be. Henry Ford said, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. So we need to do this thing called modeling, which is we look at what we first figure out what it is that we want, right? And in your case, it's we want to get to this certain level of income. You want to make $10,000 a month. Well, that means that if you make 100 sales and $100 per month, well, then that will equal what you want. So how do you make that number of sales per month? Well, first you have to have something for sale for $100, right? And then you figure, well, if I have a sales letter that converts at 2%, okay. And then if I know that if every time I email my list, about 2% of them will click through, and if I email my list every day for 30 days, well, now you can start working out how big your list needs to be and how long it will take to get to that magical $10,000 a month mark. And if all those numbers sound real crazy, well, then how about we start at just $1,000 a month? And I'm gonna break this down into 3 phases that I'm just making up off the top of my head. So I'm gonna get a piece of paper here. I'm gonna write phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. Okay. So let me tell you what these phases are the way I see it. Phase 1 is this thing called freelancing. Phase 2 is this thing called info products. And then phase 3 is this thing called passive income. And what I would say is that freelancing is a quick way to get to $1,000 to $2,000 per month. Info products are a quick way to get from $2,000 to $5,000 per month, and passive income is a quick way to get from $5,000 to $10,000 per month. And after above $10,000, things get a lot more advanced, and it's not worth you cluttering up your brain with extra stuff. First get to 10,000, and then the rest is a lot easier. So one thing I want to say first of all in this phase 1 thing is that you're not too good for any source of income, because right now you're just in the really early, just playing around stages. And at this point, even if you can get an extra $100 or $500 a month, or even just $500 flat, just $500 to begin with, to pay down your debt with that, or to pay off some bills and lighten the load for someone else in your family or some other stream of income, or to put that in your house, $500 is nothing to shake a stick at. I know it might be a really small number for you, but we got to crawl before we run. So I mean, I've been made fun of for several years because it took me a couple years to quit my day job, and even in retrospect, it only took 3 years. So I don't know why it felt like a lot longer time, but so many times I would get like, some certain person would laugh at me or say, well, you're making X dollars a month. Why didn't you quit your day job years ago? Only to find out years later that the person who was talking to me was making no money. So it's really easy to have an opinion, but it's another thing to actually, do things and make money, right? Those that can't do teach. So if you have quit your job, or you've been laid off from your job or things like that, or you just have no money coming in, it's time to get some kind of a job, all right? You're not Mark Zuckerberg, Bill Gates, and a lot of these guys that people try to model themselves after, where they say, well, I'm just going to burn the bridges, I'm going to quit everything, going to make much money. They model themselves after people who, for example, like worked for Apple, right? Or work for Microsoft and have all these stock options, have $1 million in the bank. Well, of course, if you had $1 million in the bank, of course you could spend a couple of years losing money or dorking around until you had your next big idea. But most people who are in this desperate situation, they need to just have some kind of money coming in. So if you got to be a greeter at Walmart, or go on Craigslist and see what kind of like odd jobs you can get yourself working, get a few $100s in just to take some of the pressure off, because some of this working from home stuff takes a while to pick up. All right, it's not like you can put in 10 hours and be guaranteed X number of dollars. So first thing I want to say is that if you're quit or you're fired, get a new job, even if it's part-time. It gets some kind of money coming in, and I mean that way it takes some of the pressure off for you. So with that part out of the way, freelancing. Well, a big thing is, first of all, get a budget, right? And when I say a budget, I don't mean you need to balance the checkbook or have a big spreadsheet, but even just have some idea of how much money is coming in and how much money is going out. And a lot of the times there are easy things that you can cut out of your everyday spending just to get some of that money coming in, because right now in this freelancing stage we just want to get to $1,000 or $2,000. We don't want to get to $100,000 or anything like that, just 1 or 2K. So if you look at your budget and you realize that you're spending $4 a day on Starbucks, well, guess what? That's $100 right there. Now you're 10% of the way to your goal just by slashing that out of the budget. Cable TV is another easy one. That's easily $50 or $100. And you say, what am I going to do all day? Well, you're going to do some internet stuff and make some dang money. So there are some really easy things you can slash out of the budget. If you just look at, maybe I can cut out Netflix or TV or Starbucks. There are some easy things, those luxury items you can cut out just to give yourself some breathing room. So the next thing is an easy way to make another couple $100 is a site called Fiverr, Fiverr.com. So you register yourself as what's called a Fiverr worker, and you offer different things that you'll do for $5, and after Fiverr takes their cut, you're left with about $4. Think, well, geez, how many $5 sales would I have to make? Well, the secret with the site called Fiverr are these things called the upsell. So I'm going to go to the site called Fiverr.com right now, and people offer different kinds of services like I will review your book, or I'll create a tagline for your business, or I will convert a Word document to PDF, I'll make a logo, design a t-shirt. Some people will provide testimonials or draw things or write articles or transcripts. So there are a lot of things that even if you don't necessarily have a lot of skill in something, you can at least transcribe something, right? You can at least listen to an audio file and type in what you hear. And I'm looking, so for $5, people will transcribe 10 minutes. It looks to be the going rate, okay? So people will for about 10 minutes, they will transcribe a file. So you think about that, it takes about 4 times the audio length to transcribe something. So for $4, you're getting paid for 40 minutes of your time. So that means you're making about $6 or $7 an hour. Not great, but that's better than $0. If you think about it, if you're saving the time it takes to get into a job, you're saving the parking fee and things like that. And I mean, $10 an hour isn't a huge amount of money starting out, but it's better than nothing. And I'm seeing some other ones where, like we said, if you can come up with a tagline for people or come up with a logo if you know a little bit about graphics, or some people will make things like commercials or voiceovers. Now, voiceovers are a lot of fun because with voiceovers, well, if I search the word voiceover in Fiverr, what I see is a lot of people, the average length is 200 words, okay? So 200 words is about 2 minutes. So now we're kind of increasing the hourly rate, aren't we? So for 2 minutes, you get paid $5, and you might only get one or two of those per day, but this starts to add up. So Fiverr is another great way to make that money. Now, the next site I want to tell you about is Uber.com. Uber.com. This is a site where basically you can become a taxi driver, and drive your car around and pick up people and get paid to drive people from point A to point B. And so I don't know a ton about Uber because I'm not a driver, but I've ridden an Uber a bunch of times, and I've taken courses and watched videos and things like that. And the big thing about Uber is if you are in a big city or close to one, and you can drive during peak hours, like we're talking Friday or Saturday nights. I know a lot of people who make about $1,000 a night just by being in these high traffic peak areas. So there you go, $1,000 a night for 2 or 3 nights, or 2 or 3 nights every week. That adds up pretty quickly. Next thing, Airbnb. I've stayed at some Airbnbs too and read some books about this. So Airbnb is a site where you can rent out either a shared room, a private room, or your whole home. And so that depends on how social of a person you are. But I know a couple people who there's the house they live in, and they get a professional cleaner to clean it and stuff like that. And when someone books their house, they go and stay over at a friend's house. And for those three, and you can set certain rules, like you can say, well, to rent my whole house is $100 a night, and you have to book at least 3 nights. And you can literally, in a calendar, specify which days that you will and will not rent your house out, and you can actually approve or deny people who want to stay at your house. And there's a whole rating system. The same deal with Fiverr and with Uber. There's a rating system, so you're not just renting to some creep, you're renting to someone with some actual history. So Airbnb.com is another easy way to make. If you have your space rented out, and what I've seen from when I've stayed at Airbnbs is it's rented out about half the time. So for example, I stayed with a couple in Hawaii, and they lived in like a 1 bedroom apartment, and there was a loft area, and there was $100 a night minimum stay, 3 nights, and they kept that booked about half the time. So $1,500 a month just from putting up with a little, house guest roommate. And most of these Airbnb users are polite because there's a rating system to keep out the riffraff. So next, eBay and Craigslist. Simple there is just sell whatever you don't need. If you haven't used something in a couple of years, sell it. Old computer stuff especially. If you can get $50 or $100 in that to pay down the debt, pay off the bills, that'll help. And that's a lot of what holds you back is this whole debt thing, right? Because it's easy to get caught up in, well, it's easy to charge this and that. And next thing you know, now you're paying a couple $1,000 a month just to stay afloat. So the next thing is this thing called FBA. And we have a course called Drop Ship CEO, which tells you how to do things like go into these discount stores like Walmart, pick things up and mail them into Amazon for a profit. And then once you get some working capital there, then you can go to certain sites where in China they will, for example, manufacture 1,000 copies of a spatula for 10 cents that you can then sell for $10 on Amazon. So Amazon FBA and Dropship CEO. So what we're talking about here is this whole so-called freelancing stage where you're doing a bunch of little things that are adding up. And all we're trying to do is first get to $1,000 a month. Okay, and so that means that if you only are making $300 or $400 in a month, well, that's fine. You're 40% of the way to your goal. So you get to $1,000 a month, just because if you make $1,000 a month in addition to an existing job, or in addition to your retirement, or in addition to a spouse's income, that can really take a lot of the pressure off, especially if you're just plugging along for a few months there to pay off some debt. But then once you get above $2,000 a month, you might realize that this freelancing thing has kind of taken over, or maybe you're reaching the cap there where there's no more room to grow. And that's where we get into this thing called information products, where you can expect to, once you get this ramped up, a good goal for you is between $2,000 and $5,000. I mean, whatever you personally do, that's all up to you. But what I would say is if you're now at the point where you're making some money, but you're getting a little fatigued, a little tired, well, what you want to do is introduce this thing called information products and then slowly phase out the freelancing. And so we have a great course for how to make money from information products. It's called IncomeMachine.com, IncomeMachine.com. And so what you want to do in this course is first find a thing called a niche. And if you go to a site called clickbank.com and click on the marketplace, you'll see what a niche is. A niche is things like playing guitar or learning a language. People are, and it's kind of like, you go to the bookstore and there's different categories or sections in the bookstore, right? From self-help, hypnosis, weight loss, things like that. And people out there on the internet are looking for the solutions to these problems. Okay, they want to learn how to play guitar, and everything else is letting them down. A guitar instructor, the books in the bookstore, and what they want is your online digital video course that just shortcuts them this thing. And so what you want to do is find a niche and some real problems and put out these things called information products, which means like written materials and videos solving the problem, and you charge money for that. And any income machine will show you how to do all that stuff, how to present it in a way that actually makes sense, how to take the payments, how to deliver the content, how to get traffic. All that stuff is in income machine. But what you want to do is figure out what your brand is, right? And when I say brand, I don't mean you come up with a company name or anything like that. I mean, when someone looks up your name, like Robert Plank, well, do they come up with WordPress plugins, membership sites, webinars? Well, yeah. So for your personal name, what kind of stuff about, say, guitar playing will come up? So you find this niche, and what you're doing by selling these products is what we call building a list. Building a list of buyers, of email subscribers. And then as you get bigger and bigger, then you find these people who originally you thought of as your competitors or your mentors, and you joint venture with them. Okay, and this means that if you have a beginner guitar course and you find someone with a more advanced guitar course, or if they're teaching electric guitar and you're teaching acoustic guitar, well, then you guys can cross promote each other. Think about this. Someone comes to you and they see your course on electric guitar and they say, great, I want to buy this, and they buy the course, and you say, here's the course, thanks a bunch, by the way, now that you learn electric guitar, how about you also learn acoustic guitar, and you link to your former competitor's page, but it's called your affiliate link, which means that when someone buys their course, then you also get a commission for that. And then you can do fun stuff like you can interview them, or record a bonus for your course, or vice versa, or get them on your podcast, or get them on your blog, or things like that. And what you're both doing is building a list of buyers, of people who have bought the electric guitar course and the acoustic guitar course. So you're building a list, and you're doing this thing called joint ventures, where you kind of share your list, or you have all these buyers and you send them to someone else and you get other money from them buying the course, but the person selling the other course also gets a list of buyers, and this grows and grows. And what you're doing along the way is trying different experiments, okay? And that's the best way I can look at this, because you put out different kinds of sites, and it's best actually if you can go from idea to being completely done and selling in 7 days or less, preferably 3 days, because you're just putting out different little things, and some will be duds and some won't. So it makes no freaking sense to spend a year or two building what you would say is the perfect site, only for it to not pan out at all. So this thing called an information product is basically where you find a real need, a real problem, like they can't learn Spanish, they can't play guitar, and you get them from point A, which is not knowing guitar or not knowing Spanish, to point B, which is where they know Spanish or guitar good enough. And the cool thing about all this stuff is, I mean, look at how many different new guitar playing or piano playing or weight loss hypnosis or guitar courses, or learning language courses, or any of these, how many of these come out every single year? There's always a need, there's always new ones coming out, and you just have to find the sweet spot and put a new spin on this. So what you do is you make these products, you joint venture with others, which might mean that you run Facebook ads or forum ads, or SEO, or you contact other people and get traffic from them, but you get eyeballs on your webpage, you get some sales, you sell some products, okay? And so the cool thing is, as this ramps up, then you can phase out the other stuff that was just getting you by, right? You can stop doing Uber as much. You can stop renting out the rooms on Airbnb as much, or maybe jack up the rent so that you only have to deal with like half the number of people or something like that. As far as the Fiverr stuff, I've experimented a lot with Fiverr actually. And the cool thing about Fiverr is, so basically you say you'll do these things, right? You do voiceovers, you'll do reviews, your transcripts, or logos, or things like that. And you can say, well, I'll do it in 24 hours. and you get a bunch of sales that way. But as you need the money less and less, as you're less desperate, you can say, okay, well, now a voiceover is going to take you 5 days or 7 days. So you make less sales, but now you'll only do those things when you want to. And so instead of jumping to the end, well, you start off a little bit and make some money to take the pressure off, and then move on to this thing called products, so that it's easier to make the money, right? Because think about it. If you sell something, if you sell your guitar course for $100 and you make that $100 while you're sleeping, that's a bunch of Fiverr sales or a bunch of Uber driving or an Airbnb room you didn't have to rent just to earn that money again. And so as we're ramping up, once you get to $2,000, it's good to start phasing out the freelancing. But once you get up to $5,000, once again you're filling up to capacity. It's turning into a lot of effort just to make that 5 grand, and that's where passive income comes in, right? And this is the dream everyone wants to jump to. And that's great, but until the passive income ramps up, you want to be making some money first. And so, I mean, the best example of passive income that I have is our favorite student. His name's Dr. Charles. In fact, I kind of want to make a podcast episode just about him soon. But basically, this guy is a doctor in Alabama, and he runs a directory. And so there's a certain procedure that he teaches other doctors. So think about this. He has a procedure. He has one called the vampire facelift, one called the O shot, and people say, okay, well, I want to learn vampire facelift. So these doctors buy his training, and there's like videos and things like that showing how to do this. But then when they buy, then they get added to a directory of providers for this procedure called vampire facelift that other people are looking around for. And so the cool thing is they pay a month after month to stay in the directory, and if they ever stop paying, they get automatically removed from the directory. And you too can have this exact same functionality by joining our course called membershipcube.com. That's membershipcube.com. And in Membership Cube, we give you the ability to host what's called a membership site, which could be, by the way, someone pays you one time or multiple times, and you can run this thing called a directory where you can have people pay you for the ability to somehow be promoted, and as long as they keep paying, they remain in this public directory. If they stop paying, they get removed. And so the cool thing about this is once people join this site, then, I mean, Dr. Charles doesn't have to do anything. They just keep paying month after month to stay in this. And so if you think about it, there's other membership sites like, say, GoToWebinar. I love that one, where I pay for the ability to run these things called live webinars, where people can register for a live online event. Once I start up the event, they can show my screen, I can speak my voice, I can record it, and this makes me a lot more money. And so it's worth the monthly fee I'm paying in there. And so the real question is, well, if you're in the guitar niche or the language niche, what will people pay you for month after month? And the easy answer is, well, look at your competitors, look at what they're doing. But a lot of people, they want to just jump to this last step, and then the whole thing collapses in on itself. And they want to just start with, well, my very first thing I'm going to sell is some kind of monthly fee. Well, you don't necessarily know what that's going to be, and so it's easier to start with freelancing to make some money, products to make some single payment kind of income, and then move on to this thing called passive income. And so for that, it's best to have a membership site. That way, if people stop paying, then you can cut them off. And we have many courses. For example, Income Machine is actually one of them, where people pay us on what's called a fixed term membership site. So they join our site, and it's actually cut up into 5 payments. So that way we can charge a high price, but there's a low barrier of entry. And then once they're completely paid off, they have access to the course forever. And if they stop paying payment number 3 or 4, then they no longer have access. And so another one of our courses is called podcastcrusher.com. podcastcrusher.com, which shows you how to create your own online radio show and get it listed on iTunes for free. Well, this is a technical process, and there's a few steps involved, but people are struggling trying to figure out how to do it, right? If you try to hire someone to set it up for you, it's thousands of dollars. If you try to do it yourself, you'll do the steps wrong or miss things, and it just takes months to try to even figure it out. So why not just shortcut it and pay the $100 for Podcast Crusher and get your podcast set up? So, by the way, as far as passive income, having a blog and having a podcast is one of those ways to keep the leads, the list building, and to keep the money coming in. Having a book out there, and by the way, our course for making a book is called makeaproduct.com. So what you do is, now that you have all the stuff about playing guitar, you're going to notice that there are some things you're fine just telling people for free, right? Some of your runoff or your byproducts of building this business. So like you have your step-by-step sequence for learning guitar, but you might want to put out some tips for free, right? Some tips about, well, what's the best brand of guitar, or what's the fastest way to just play one song or something. You can put that in a quick little Kindle book, and then if people are searching Amazon.com for how to play guitar, they'll buy your Kindle book, they'll get a few problems solved, and then go over to your website and buy from you there. Or people will look up on iTunes how to start to play guitar, and you can just answer a couple of simple beginner questions every week on your podcast. Because they search on iTunes, they find your podcast, they go to your website, and they buy from you again and again. And then another really cool way to have your passive income going. And by the way, passive income, the range for that we said was 5K to 10K. So once again, once your business is at about $5,000, it's time to bring these passive income components in, like membership sites, podcasts, books, and a coaching program, and then phase out especially the freelancing, and maybe even phase out a few of the info products, the ones that aren't the best use of your time, the ones that aren't selling the most. So the cool thing about this thing called a coaching program is that some people are going to say, okay, well, I bought your Kindle book on guitar, I listened to your podcast, I bought your $100 course on guitar, but I want some extra attention. You say, well, great, for $200 an hour, I will get on Skype with you, and I will personally work one-on-one with you to improve your guitar skills. And here's the cool thing about this is, if you make a button for a $200 1-hour appointment, and you put it on there, what's the worst that can happen? No one clicks the button. Even if one or two people click on the button, to get paid $200 an hour, where when you started off, what did we say? You're making like $7 an hour from the Fiverr stuff, from writing articles. So instead of trying to jump this huge chasm, you're starting off small. We're saying phase one, freelancing, $1,000 to $2,000 a month. Moving on to info products, $2,000 to $5,000 a month, and then on to passive income, which is $5,000 to $10,000 a month, which is this membership sites. And then you get to this point, and by the way, it's all about the list. You get to the point where you wake up in the morning and you type a message to your list and you tell them what you want them to do. So you mail to your list and you say, I've got this live webinar coming up, or even better, you say, I've got this podcast episode I just put out, or even better, you say, I've got this sales letter is what we call it, and I want you to buy my course. I want you to buy my guitar course. So you just type a quick message, you mail it out to your list, and then a certain percentage opens the email and clicks, and then they see this thing called a sales letter, and a certain percentage buys, and then that's the money that you made for that day. And so you get to the point, you get closer and closer to this critical mass of $10,000. Well, eventually, it all works for you. You have enough link juice coming in from your blog, from the other joint ventures, from your affiliates, from your podcasts, from your books, and then it all piles and piles on, but you gotta crawl before you run. So freelancing, info products, and then passive income. And that's how you create a $10,000 per month income stream in just 5 hours per week. And where does the 5 hours per week come from? 4DT, 4 daily tasks. I guarantee that the average person, I'm not talking about you, of course, not you, this is not you, but the average person sits on their computer and they don't know what to do. They click around, check some email, change their desktop background, defrags their hard drive, and they literally spend 8 hours a day when it could just be an hour or less doing the things that make money, the things that move you closer to make it to the level of income you want, actual business tasks that are complete, like registering our domain name, buying some ads here, sending out some email for joint ventures there, but you need to compress the amount of time that you put into your business. And if you just sit down and it's your hot seat, you get things knocked out, you'll have a lot more fun and you move a lot faster than the average person who is your competitor. So that's how to create a $10,000 per month income stream in just 5 hours per week, freelancing, info products, and then passive income. This has been the Robert Plank Show. Go ahead out there and do it, and join our course at incomemachine.com. That's INCOMEMACHINE.com. to literally see how we do it and literally see us set up a new passive income stream right before your eyes. I'm Robert Plank, The Robert Plank Show. Thanks for listening and thank you.